Keith, what are your thoughts on waiting for someone to help get your career started?
You can't really wait for people, because if you just wait, you're just gonna spend your whole life waiting. I think that, especially in this business in Hollywood, you have control of your own destiny, like a lot of businesses, and wherever you're trying to accomplish, you have to go out and do it yourself, because there's so much saturation and competition in this business that if you end up just waiting, you're just gonna be waiting forever. So you really have to go for what you want and put those goals in your mind and just go for it and make it happen.
What does being an entrepreneur mean to you?
Entrepreneur is someone who invents and someone who leads and makes things happen for himself and also provides jobs for people. That's what my definition of entrepreneur is. And also is creating their own income and financially, for themselves.
Do you think the idea of an entrepreneur having like their day free is actually, I guess you call it a misnomer, where you actually are more on the line for your business, where your day might not be what you want it to be because you might have to fix problems?
Right, and that's one thing I've experienced as an entrepreneur is a lot of your days are troubleshooting, going out and trying to get sales and trying to meet other people and network and create income for yourself. There's no average day. Every day is different. So it's on you. It's your responsibility to create that income and make things happen. So yeah, there's no really like waiting around, and you have to figure out, and you're constantly troubleshooting and coming up with new ways to create a business for yourself.
Is that something that you realized in the beginning? I know for a long time you've wanted to be an entrepreneur. You've talked about that before with us, I think.
Right. Yes and no. A lot of the stuff it's taken a little while, especially when I opened the studio, to learn stuff about being an entrepreneur and a business owner that I didn't know prior, which I expected, like you're gonna learn things on the road and as you go. But my two uncles were entrepreneurs, and I've talked to them before about being an entrepreneur and got some advice from them. But I'm learning something new every day about myself and as a business owner that, it's just constantly, every day you're coming up with different ways to go out and make things happen.
What's the difference between being a filmmaker and an entrepreneur?
Good question. Well, they're both the same thing, essentially. Well, yes and no. A filmmaker is somebody who likes to create art because they're passionate about it, just in my mind. But also, you can turn that into a business of your own as well. So if you want to be a filmmaker just to create art, that's one thing. But if you want to turn it into a business as to make money off of, you can as well. But it's the same. Every business is different on how you make an income for yourself, obviously. And I can't speak for every business. I just know my business of this virtual film studio and the production company, as far as making an income. But every business is totally different. So yeah, I mean, a filmmaker is, like I said, someone who makes art and can also profit off it if they want to. Yeah.
Have you viewed yourself as a filmmaker since day one? And I guess I should say day one of maybe leaving Florida, coming to Los Angeles?
No, I viewed myself as an entrepreneur. When I came here, I wasn't a filmmaker. I got into filmmaking after the fact. I've always been interested in it, but I came here originally for stunt work and acting, and then it led to filmmaking, of creating my own content, because I got sick and tired of relying on other people for jobs. So I started making my own jobs and providing my own jobs for myself and for other people. That was originally the game plan. So I kind of got into filmmaking after the fact, and I fell in love with it as well.
What advice do you have for someone who may want to open their own studio?
Sure. So my advice is this. Of course, you can go talk to another studio owner, but what I would do is go find two people that you know, or maybe you don't know them, in your local community, what are business owners. One what's had a business for 30 plus years before the online era, and then one who's had a business post-online era with all the Instagram and just online boom, basically. Talk to both those business owners, see what they did, see what they did right, see what they did wrong, how they got business coming in, and just their experiences overall. because those are the two biggest assets you're going to have to learn on how really to start a business versus anything else, in my opinion, is talking to those people. So I would talk to them first, and then, go talk to another studio owner for whatever type of studio you're trying to open and see if they'll talk to you, take them out for a coffee or whatever. So that's my biggest advice, and that's something I did do in the beginning, but I wish I did more of, because you'll really get the runaround on what you're in for.
And I'm curious, why would someone want to speak to someone who has a strictly like brick and mortar business instead of an online business?
No, good question. A lot of reasons. So with the brick and mortar business, you're gonna run into a lot more issues, such as roof leaks. I've dealt with that. Roof leaks during rainstorms. You gotta come out here at 12 a.m. in the morning and deal with people breaking in. You have just like issues with maybe people nearby, like tenants, something happens, a fire or just something nearby that you have to come attend to, because you have a physical storefront now versus online business. You're gonna deal with all those different types of things. So, and then plus also, I mean, depending on the business, what has the assets in there, like the physical products or equipment, you're gonna deal with troubleshooting that, stuff breaking, stuff going down, electricity issues, things like that. So it's a totally different thing versus just like an online business, in my opinion, with just the other extra responsibility you have, from my personal experience.
You said you spoke to two types of business owners, or I know you said you wish you'd done more of it, but two types, one that was more online, digital, and one that was more sort of the physical world.
Right.
Did you ask the person in the brick and mortar, sort of the old school style, what they did when things started to change? And how was that scary for them, and what did they do to compensate for that? Yeah,
I mean, some of the business owners I did know or known, I've talked to, either bought the business where they already had clients already established. So they already had stuff kind of rolling in. And that's kind of like a lot of business owners I have talked to, but I have talked to other people who've started from scratch as well. And they both have different experiences. But I mean, every business is always changing. So that's like the biggest thing you have to stay on top of, is always being able to adapt and overcome whatever is, changing in the business, so you can stay up to speed, so you don't get left behind. So, that's either talking to people, reading, like I do a ton of reading on just stuff on my business, a ton of reading, and then my own troubleshooting on stuff. But as far as like the marketing and stuff, I'm always learning what's the new trends, what's coming out, the new technology, what's coming out. So people really, what our business owners have to stay on top of that and how things are shifting, because every business, like I said, is different how it shifts.
How did you first hear about virtual production?
Virtual production really became big and known from the Mandalorian TV show from Disney. And that's kind of like where I got a taste of it and really heard about it. And that was like 2019, around COVID, maybe 2020. But yeah, that's when I first really heard about it and really started extensively researching it, and saw the power and the capabilities and all the things what can be done with it really can benefit and help people and filmmakers and companies with filming for whatever they're trying to shoot, whatever project.
How many movies or TV shows can you name right now that you feel use virtual production?
There's a lot. Mandalorian, I mentioned one. It's a space movie with Tom Cruise. I don't remember off my head, but there's Lion King. The Lion King used it. There's been a lot of commercials have used it for stuff, for like airplane stuff, car process stuff, commercials for like Samsung or whatever, like cell phone commercials in a car. They don't have to actually go drive out in the streets, so they use virtual production or in-camera VFX, which they parallel. So,
how did you decide to build your own studio?
So this whole studio came about a couple years ago. Let's see, I was location scouting for a project in Lancaster in the desert. And I was already researching virtual production and looking into it and saw all the benefits of it. But when I was in Lancaster, I was driving out there, I was in my Jeep, and I go on this hilltop area. And of course, I'm don't know where my Jeep gets stuck. So it gets stuck in the sand. The second time this has happened, like a year before it happened. But anyways, I get stuck in the sand. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. The transmission blows out. Like the transmission's done because I'm trying to get out of there. Yeah, it took me like an hour to get a tow truck out there, and then he barely could get out there to where I was. So that was like, for me, a big turning point to where I was like, you know what? That is like a perfect example of what virtual production can do for people and help people and companies on achieving a production where they don't have to go to the deserts and get stuck in the sand, or they can't access the location, or just the harsh heat, the climate, so many different things. And then the long drive to get to the desert. Like Lancaster's an hour and a half from here, hour and 40 minutes. So that was kind of what really sparked my final green light to say, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Because I just saw it firsthand, like that's just is such a benefit to not have to deal with that. And you have bathrooms locally, it's climate controlled in the studio. You don't have to worry about that versus like getting porta potties out to where you're filming and craft services and base camp. It's all done in the studio, easy.
So after you got your car home,
Yeah.
You started researching alternatives?
Right. I mean, I already was looking into virtual production, but that was kind of like my final say-so of like greenlighting, going ahead and doing this and starting a virtual studio because that incident would happen. It's just like, and I mentioned some of the benefits, but that's just one of them. I mean, that can change if you're getting a cast and crew of 20 people out to the desert or snow mountains and people are getting stuck. It's just going to delay productions and like cost your team more money versus you go to a virtual studio, everything's there. Like I said before, like bathrooms, your craft services, your base camp, where we're getting stuck, everything's easily right there within a few feet of you versus having to do all the traveling and gas for people. So it's extra expenses. But yeah, that's what was my big turning point.
How hot was it when you were there?
Good question. I should have touched base on that. That was in 2022, I believe, or early 2022. It was right during the middle of a heat wave, or the beginning of a heat wave, what just started. I didn't know when I went out there that we were in a heat wave because it was like day 1 or 2 of the heat wave. And I just thought, like, I got out there and like, wow, it's really hot out here. It was like early September. I mean, I was like, it is freaking scorching hot out here. Like, I even think I took my shirt off because I was like waiting for the tow truck and it was like 115. And I had like a bottle of water and like a snack bar and that was it. And yeah, it was the beginning of a heat wave, a heat dome, I guess we had in LA. I think it was early 2022, or like I said, September, around that time. And that's another thing. So it was just the heat. Yeah, it was bad. So and that was what also influenced me. Like, wow, look at that. People don't have to deal with that. I mean, how are you go film out in a desert in 115 degrees? Like, you can't. You have to wait. I mean, people are going to pass out. That's liability for you. You gotta have medical staff on standby. So yeah, versus a virtual studio, you don't have to deal with that.
How does virtual production factor into your plans to continue filmmaking?
Yeah, I mean, I have my own personal projects that myself as a company is producing as well to put out and, for the public to see and for distribution later down the road. I've been really focusing on, with my team managing the studio for the most part this past year since it's been open. But as far as filmmaking currently, like with stuff I have, we did like 2 years ago, 2 one-off like TV pilots, I guess you could say. One was called Suitcase City, which is now on Tubi TV and like Vimeo on demand. And then we also did a one-off of for X-Men fans called, there's a Cyclops Chronicles, the story of Scott Summers, of the Cyclops character from X-Men, for X-Men fans, not for distribution, just for fun, for entertainment purposes, for people to see. Anyways, we're taking both of those one-off pilots now and we're taking that into the virtual studio here and we're continuing it in virtual production, entirely in virtual production, 100%. And the purpose of that is to demonstrate and show people the capabilities and the power of virtual production, what can really be done and how it looks on camera and how it can benefit people and help people to achieve something in a short amount of time. And just in general, what virtual production, what can be done with it, with just a whole series in general of whatever project they're trying to make. So that's what I'm working on now, and we're in post-production on those 2 series I mentioned.
How did you teach yourself virtual production, and how much of a learning curve is there?
Wow, it was, it was a long process, and I started with learning Unreal Engine myself, which is the gameware software program for people who don't know what that is. We call it a 3D asset. in virtual production, what's put on the LED wall. So we use LED wall rear projection for virtual production here at the studio. And I started with just like going online, going on YouTube, and then reading online. And then I started messing with it myself on my computer. I downloaded Unreal Engine, started learning that. And then when I was researching virtual production in general and reading about it, I got kind of how it works, sort of. But I tell filmmakers and directors and cinematographers will come in here. It's hard to grasp what it is just by watching it on YouTube and like reading about it. You won't know until you go out and experience it yourself. Like anything, experience rules everything in life. Whatever you're trying to do, that's the number one way you will learn. So I didn't really, until I opened the studio and really learned, I didn't really learn all the technical aspects involved in virtual production and how it really works until I opened the studio and learned by experience. And it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of just tech shooting, tons of months of that, and just really learning before I made it publicly available for people to come in and rent out. So it was a big learning curve and a lot of work. There's a whole, couple different aspects of virtual production, and one is the camera tracking solution. Since what we use here to create what we call parallax on the wall, which is the LED wall moving in the background in unison with the Unreal Engine gaming software.
And did you have to get a new computer, or you already had one that was compatible?
I did. I had to get a PC with the graphic card, talk to a couple buddies and people in the business I knew recommended I get a certain PC and the right graphic card to power Unreal Engine, so there's no problems. I did have to get a good PC to have that.
So in addition to the PC, the software, and then the LED wall, any other things that you need that you can share?
Sure, no, absolutely. So I'll kind of touch base on virtual production, like the different elements and what's needed and how it works. So you have your LED walls, your rear projection, right? Then you have your computer with Unreal Engine on it. Then everything's connected from the LED wall. You have a processor, controller, what powers the LED wall. And then, like I said, the computer. And then if you're using Unreal Engine, you have that what gets displayed on LED wall. And then for Unreal Engine, you have your camera tracking solution, what's basically a camera tracker, what gets mounted on top of the camera. And that camera tracker gets paired in unison with a in-game camera. There's an actual camera in Unreal Engine called a cine camera. And it gets paired with that through a plugin, right? So it gets paired in unison. And when it's paired to the plugin, it creates what we call parallax on the wall, which is the shifting of the LED panels, which is really, it's creating this 3D effect that you're actually there instead of a static wall. When the actor is moving left and right in front of the screen or forward or backwards or whatever, and the camera's moving with them, the wall is moving perspective. The wall is moving perspective with the actual actor because of that camera tracker. So that is one of the big elements of virtual production. So you don't have that static wall. So and then you have your lighting elements. You make sure you light it properly, frame it, shoot it on the right lens, which you want, and put it with the right foreground practicals. And that's how really helps facilitate this vision that you're somewhere else in the world.
Keith, can you explain virtual production workflow?
Virtual production is a little bit different than the normal filmmaking process, and it starts with what we call previs. A client will come to us and say, hey, I want to do this project in virtual production. So everything in virtual production is done in that pre-production process. There's a lot of planning. So one of the questions we ask them is, well, what are you trying to achieve, and what are some different ways we can achieve it? Because not every virtual production shoot requires what we call a 3D asset, which is using Unreal Engine. And there's also called 2D assets, which we use as well, which is a video or image plate, which basically, for people who don't know what that is basically a video file or image file, which is displayed on the LED wall. So, and that can kind of parallel with in-camera VFX, which I can get into later. But anyways, so if a person comes to us, they're like, hey, we want to do this. We start talking about, okay, what are we going to use? 2D asset, 3D asset? Do we need camera tracking with the 3D asset Unreal Engine? And depending on what they need, we'll make that determination. So we start planning it out, help them out with, decorating the foreground with whatever practicals they need to sell that environment. like if they're in the snow mountains, where to get a proper set dresser person to come in, and we help facilitate that. So we talk about all these different things and like talk about the certain camera they're using and the technical elements that, what's involved in virtual production. Not just in camera, what you can see, but also with the blocking and placements of the actor compared to the wall, depending on what shots they want. So a lot of that stuff to discuss in the previs, in pre-production. And we shoot in virtual production since everything's with an LED wall as a backdrop versus a green screen, it's all shot in what we call picture. So when you're in post-production, you don't have to worry about compositing and taking that green screen out and putting whatever background you want in there. It's all shot in the can. So that's one of the big benefits. So everything's shot there. It saves them a lot of time. So we talk about all these elements, and when it's time for the shoot, they come in, we tech advise and help them out with all those different things I just discussed, and we decorate it with the right foreground dressing depending on the scene, right? And we light it properly for the shots they want and the proper lens, focal length. If they want like a tighter shot on a 50 or 65 millimeter, or if they're trying to get a wide shot, which can be achieved well in virtual production, there's more precise blocking when it has to be done. We help them out with that. So that's a lot of technical stuff that we help out with. So we get them what they want, and then if they're using the Unreal Engine, if they want camera tracking to create that parallax, we help them out with that as well. So if they're just using a 2D asset, such as a video image plate, then it doesn't have camera tracking on it. So it just depends what they need. So that's kind of the whole process works with virtual production. And then they have that footage they can take to go into post-production. It's all shot in picture. So they don't have to do any compositing. But all that previs work is done up front for pre-production, where all those things I just discussed have to be precisely talked about. So it's lit properly, they have the right, focal length, the millimeter, the 50 or 65 millimeter, wherever it's a tighter shot, or if it's a wider shot, wherever they're trying to achieve. So they take that into post-production, and they have, we give them something good, what they want for their project. So that's kind of the whole process from virtual production, how it kind of works from beginning to end. But yeah, I know I talked a lot about the 2D asset, like a video image plate, but in-camera VFX can kind of parallel with virtual production. So I can go into that as well, but we do both.
And can someone use their own DSLR camera?
Yes and no. So I tell people, I have a guide I give out to people for cinematographers who come in. I recommend strongly a cinema camera, a film camera, when you come into a virtual studio, where it has shutter angle and different things on it for settings. DSLRs, I don't recommend for various reasons. There's very few settings that work on a DSLR. Not many, if at all. It depends on the camera on the DSLR, but there's very few settings that work on a DSLR camera. So myself, my team, we don't recommend those. Bring a cinema camera into our studio, or I'd recommend that to any virtual studio. So yeah. And
I'm assuming no iPhones?
Yeah, good question. Phones also, like phone cameras, you're gonna have a lot of issues with as well. And these issues I'm talking about, you'll see, we call banding, horizontal banding and flickering. And there's different terms in virtual production, in the VFX community for this. Some people call it like line tearing, and flickering, horizontal banding, but you're gonna see different elements. And you're gonna see a lot of that with the phone camera. You can't get around it unless you can adjust some certain settings, what need to be done, especially with a cinema camera, what that can offer. So what phones don't offer. So yeah, you're gonna see issues with the phone camera.
Can you explain what is parallax?
Sure. So parallax, so basically, so in virtual production, we have our 3D asset, which is Unreal Engine, right? So you have Unreal Engine, and you're gonna have a camera tracker, what gets mounted on the top of the camera. And depending on the type of camera tracking solution you're using, you're gonna have, it depends. Like if you're using Moses, you're gonna have these little reflectors on the ceiling. There's different companies would offer different things, or they might have like a base stations. There's another camera tracking solution that has what they call them base stations, and it receives a signal. They all operate this similar. They receive a signal to the camera tracker, and that camera tracker gets tied in unison with a in-game camera. So there's an actual camera inside Unreal Engine we call a cine camera actor, And that, through a plugin in Unreal Engine, ties both of those in unison. So the camera tracker and the in-game camera. So when it's tied together, basically, when you move your camera tracker on top of the camera, the screens we call it parallaxing. It's shifting. It's moving. It's changing perspective. So if you're panning left or right, the environment's going to pan left or right. So if your actor or your subject in front is moving left or right, when the camera tracker and the camera is moving left or right, it's going to move with it. So it creates that real 3D effect that you're actually there, versus a static image. So that is the definition of parallax and kind of how it works, what it is, and what's involved.
What is real-time rendering?
Sure. Real-time rendering is basically creating assets on the fly. So like if you're going to create a 3D asset in Unreal Engine, what we call it, you're creating it on the spot. So you are either creating that environment on the spot or you're moving objects in the background in Unreal Engine on the spot. So everything's done, we call it real time, which means immediately. So if you want to change like mountain ridges, if you want to change waterfalls in this background or like buildings, anything, you can move them around, you can delete them, you can change the sunlight direction, you can keep it in the sunlight in a certain area at all times. But it can be changed in, like I said, what we call real time, immediately. So you can change things in real time, and you can create the environment on the spot if you want. I mean, it'll take some time. Like if you're usually an asset, like a 3D asset in Unreal Engine, it's gonna be created way in advance. But you can move things out, in and out in the game program immediately, so in real time. So that's one of the big benefits, but that's generally what it is. So you have that computer gaming software system, you're changing things, you're creating things on the spot, so that's why it's so beneficial, real-time rendering. You're creating things on the fly for what you want for the production. They're like, hey, I don't want that mountain ridge there, I want to have this there, I want that building moved over here. You just change it right there in a split second, that's it.
What about in post-production? Mm-hmm. Can you do the same, or no, once you've shot the image, it's there to stay?
Well, there's a lot of things you can do in post-production now. So, I mean, I would say yes, it depends on who your VFX guy is in post-production. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff, but I mean, the whole purpose of virtual production and rear projection with LED walls is it's all shot in the can, it's all shot in picture, so you don't have to do that. You don't have to do a lot of work in post-production. But I mean, if you hire the right person and you're like, hey, I changed my mind, I don't like that mountain ridge in the background, I mean, I'm sure they can work some magic to get it out. I've never done that. We don't really do that for the post-production work. We just deal with the virtual production aspect. But yeah.
How do you match the lighting, especially with people in front of the screen and then what's on the screen?
Sure. Yeah, so the lighting, that's one of the biggest elements that help sell virtual production. And you have to be very careful on how you light. Most cinematographers, we guide them when they come here and they'll figure it out, but we tech advise and all that. So you're gonna match your lighting sources. So if you have say you're like in an alleyway or something in a 3D environment or Unreal Engine or wherever, even the video or image plates, you're gonna match your lighting source. If you have like a street light coming from over here, you're gonna match that. Say it's like a neon light, well, you're gonna put a neon light over here and try to match as best as possible. So you really just try to, it's not too technical, I mean, it seems it, but you just match what's on the LED wall, wherever your lighting's coming from, sunlight, or wherever you put that lighting in the same area to come down on your subject. So that's how you kind of light it. So there's different elements and whatever else is needed to sell, that you're in that environment.
Can you tell us about using virtual production to take advantage of golden hour?
Well, I can remember as myself going on locations and filming and having to worry about rushing to get that shot off because of, the sun's running out, you're running out of time, you want that specific look with the sun in a certain direction, for your environment. But with this, in virtual production, you don't have to worry about that at all because the sun can now be manipulated to stay in the same exact direction for the whole time you're there, essentially. Or it can be moved, it can be taken out, you can make it nighttime, but you can make it that golden hour the whole time, the whole 12-hour day if you want, for how many scenes you want. So that's one of the big benefits of having it versus hey, I only have 30 minutes to get the shot. Now you have 12 hours or however long you're in the studio.
How does virtual production impact travel costs?
Yeah, that's one Well, huge, because now with the virtual studio, everything's shot in the studio. You don't have to travel anywhere. You just go to the studio, and the cast and crew doesn't have to travel 2 hours to get to the mountains or deserts or wherever the location is. If you want to shoot an indoor location, a mountain ridge location, like a desert location in one day, you can do that. So you just go to the virtual studio and everything can literally be changed on that LED wall in a matter of seconds. If you're using Unreal Engine or even a video or image plate, it can be changed in a second. So yeah, you don't have to travel 2 hours to get to these locations. You can do everything right there, and that's where it cuts down on your production time literally in half. So instead of a 12-day shoot, you're doing a 6-day shoot, because now you just did a shot on the skyscraper of New York. Your next scene is indoors somewhere, and then now you're out in the mountains, the snowy mountains, doing some snow scene. It's all shot right there, wherever the studio's at.
And what about the fact that as filmmakers start using this technology, that maybe a lot of films will have the same backgrounds?
Well, well, yes and no. I mean, they can. So Unreal Engine, you can make these backgrounds. So whoever, either yourself or whoever your team is, either your team makes it, or you can source through another contractor who makes Unreal Engine backgrounds. So yeah, either you make it yourself or another contractor, or however. There's different ways. There's a marketplace you can get them as well. So royalty-free, commercial-free. So yeah, so there's constantly new environments being made, or like I said, you make it yourself. And if you're using the 2D assets, such as video image plates, you can go film those yourself, shoot them yourself, or you can go online too and get royalty-free, stock-free images or video files to use. So there's tons of ways to keep getting the files and making them. So, yeah.
So the possibilities are endless, that you're not going to be sort of like, there's not going to be 100 templates, right, and everyone's going to have the same thing.
Right, because especially with Unreal Engine, they're always there's so many different assets and things where are constantly being made that you can get for yourself or make it yourself. You can constantly, it's endless possibilities. And same with video image plates. You can go and shoot those yourself or get it from somebody else. So yeah, there's no, I'm not worried about it. I know a lot of other filmmakers, they shouldn't be worried about seeing the same backdrop for different movies and stuff, because anything can be made. It doesn't matter what it is. You just design it from scratch.
If you were interested in storytelling, you may also like our new book, Story Questions, the sponsor of today's video. It's a story tool that offers you over 1,500 story questions that you can use as story prompts. It's packed with over 40 categories, so whether you are in the brainstorming stages, developing characters, dialogue, or rewriting, it can help you at every stage of the writing process. Think about this statement. Most powerful stories are just great answers to strong questions. We've linked up to story questions in the information section below. Now back to the interview. How much green screen have you tried in your career?
Not much. I haven't done a lot of green screen shoots. I have years ago, but I have not done a lot of it. But that's why I saw the benefits with virtual production with LED wall filming versus green screen. Is with LED wall, everything's shot in picture, and then also you have that natural light acting as a rear light source with an LED wall of the actual environment, what's on the actual actor or subject, what's going on to them, versus green screen. You have the green overspill, potentially you have to take out in post-production, and then you have to composite and change that background in post-production with the green screen. So that's what made me get into LED wall virtual production versus green screen. But my experience overall, I don't have a lot of experience filming in green screen or any of that with virtual production, with green screen, nothing like that.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of using a green screen?
Well, some I touched base earlier is, the disadvantages is that green overspill potentially would come on the actor, on their shoulder or whatever, which you have to take out in post-production. And then also you have to do the post-production work of the compositing with putting that environment that you want there. And then also another big thing is the actor, for instance, they have to really pretend that they're seeing a T-Rex or whatever it is behind them on the green screen, versus with an LED wall, they have the actual images there. They can really see it. So that's some of the differences. Advantages, it's kind of acts as the same thing with LED wall in a sense of you have the advantage of, if you want to make a spaceship or whatever, you can make that environment with green screen still. It's just in post-production you'd be making that, versus in pre-production, previs with virtual production with LED walls, you're making that in the pre-production process. So yeah, green screen you can still do there's a lot of benefits. You can still do your mountains out in the snow or whatever you want, somewhere in the world that you can't really access, your spaceship or whatever it is. But you're not going to see that in the background as the actor and as the crew, obviously. So it has its advantages and its disadvantages.
Will virtual production make green screens obsolete?
I think so eventually. I don't know. Well, I don't know if entirely obsolete, because they have their uses. I mean, they're more affordable, way more affordable than, if you're trying to make an LED wall, it's going to be more expensive, obviously. I think LED wall filming in virtual production, especially, will get bigger and bigger as time goes on, and green screens will become less and less, especially as LED walls, maybe in the technology gets more easy accessible and a little more, the prices change and stuff like that. But green screen, maybe not entirely obsolete, but it will always be there, but not as much in the future as it is now. That will be around, I don't think.
What do you think about combining green screen technology with virtual production technology?
Well, I don't do this as a studio, but there are some people who do virtual production with a green screen, which I've never done it before, but the process is, you have your camera tracking solution, right, on your camera with Unreal Engine, and on the monitor in Video Village, they're able to see that environment on the actual monitor. And it's a form of virtual production using green screen. But obviously it's a green screen, it's not an LED wall. I've never done it, I've seen it, not in person. I don't have much experience in it, but you can still use virtual production with green screen. Now I have had clients come in here and they have used, we put on a green backdrop on the actual LED wall, and then they went in post-production and they made that environment they wanted, whatever it was. So I have had clients come in here and do that, but yeah.
Is that something that people don't necessarily understand, that you can use virtual production as a green screen?
You can, yes, you can use green screen with virtual production, with your camera tracking solution. There are certain studios that do that. It's a different process a little bit, I think. I haven't done it myself, but having your monitor show in Video Village the Unreal Engine environment, for instance, and it's parallaxing, or it's the camera tracking, how it's moving, you're seeing it in the Video Village in the monitor. There are some studios that would do it, not many from what I've seen, but majority of people are shifting towards LED wall as for virtual production and rear projection, LED wall filming. So you could still do it, but it's a little bit different. So it's a different expertise, I think, with how they do that. I don't know how they do that aspect of it. I just know the LED wall filming aspect.
What's your opinion as an actor and director working with a green screen versus virtual production?
Well, so you can still do virtual production with green screen, right? But if you're using LED wall filming as your virtual production versus green screen, it has its differences. So your actor, for instance, is going to see what's on the wall versus a green screen. And then you have a lot of different technical elements for the director and the crew to deal with LED wall filming versus green screen. On your LED wall, you're going to see the horizontal banding, the flickering, line tearing, in Unreal Engine potentially, with Genlock, depends if they're Genlocking, which I strongly advise that people do Genlock in virtual production, which is basically synchronizing all your equipment in step with each other on the sets. So you have your camera tracking solution, you have your camera, the computer, and then the processor, LED wall processor controller. So yeah, the different technical elements with an LED wall versus the green screen is some of those things I mentioned, but mainly the main ones I would say definitely is the horizontal banding, the flickering. There's different things you're going to see in camera. with frequency and stuff, with matching with your LED wall. So yeah.
Keith, you wanted to add something about refresh rates. What is that?
Right. So, like when we were mentioning before about green screen versus LED wall filming, so you don't see a lot of these technical elements. One of the things you do want to do is match your refresh rates with the LED wall on the controller, LED wall processor, in line with your camera. So that's one big thing that's in virtual production with LED wall filming that needs to be done along with other things to avoid technical elements and issues you're going to see in camera.
So essentially, you're kind of like operating two things, and you want to make sure they're always in simpatico.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You want to match the refresh rates, and there's different settings you want to change in the camera that will work so you don't see these issues in camera, the banding, the flickering, all that stuff.
For instance, as we were setting up this camera, you helped us do some adjustments that we weren't aware that we needed to do.
Right. Right. So we matched the camera hertz on that camera with the refresh rate on LED wall processor, and that helps eliminate some of these technical issues we're seeing in camera, such as the horizontal banding, the flickering. So there's certain things you have to do when you're setting up for LED wall filming in camera VFX or virtual production, and that's one of the things you have to do in camera. And there's a lot of other things you have to do as well for settings to make sure you're not seeing all these issues. And I mentioned Genlock is one of them as well, which really helps.
So it's not just point and shoot. You got to make sure everything's compatible.
Right. And that's why we strongly recommend people come in with a cinema camera, not a DSLR camera, because the DSLR camera doesn't have all these capabilities and settings that a cinema camera has. So yeah.
And it wouldn't work with a pre-DSLR either, correct?
They can work. So depending on DSLR, they can still work, but it's not a lot of settings. It's very few settings, if not any, depending on DSLR. So I haven't tested out like every DSLR on these walls, but we tell clients don't come in to avoid any possible issues with a DSLR camera. We strongly recommend do not come in with it. So it's very, very hard to get that camera in sync and have it work with an LED wall with the different things I mentioned you're going to see in camera.
What is Unreal Engine?
Unreal Engine is a gaming software program that is heavily used in virtual production. And you can create any environment in the world that you want in Unreal Engine. So you're creating a game environment, essentially. That's what it is. So yeah, you can change things, you can move things around, sunlight, anything you want. And you're creating a game environment, basically. And that's now, the environments look so good, like high definition, like just awesome, that it looks awesome on an LED wall and very realistic.
Does Unreal Engine have competition?
Yes and no. I mean, okay, so there's like Unity. There's other gaming programs. Unity is one of them. I've never used it. But for virtual production with LED wall filming, especially Unreal Engine is the program that we all use in the community. I don't know if you can even use another program other than Unreal Engine. Maybe you can, but Unreal Engine is the program that everyone's using for virtual production.
What kind of computer and what kind of computing power do you need to run Unreal Engine?
Right. Well, you need a certain graphic card. So you need a certain graphic card. I recommend a PC station with certain specs on it. I had one of my tech guys come to me and he sorted all that out for me of what I needed as far as graphic card and storage, memory, all that stuff for RAM, all that stuff for the computer to power Unreal Engine, because it does take up. It can, if you don't have the right computer program, it can really lag and not work properly, which you don't want. You need that for your business and for your clients.
Is Unreal Engine compatible with Mac?
That I'm not 100% sure about. I think it is, yes. But for virtual production with LED walls, a PC station is recommended. So I've never used a Mac, but I'm sure you can use it with Unreal Engine. I've never done it myself. So this is it's what's recommended, what I've seen, especially to us, is a PC. So we use a PC.
And nothing handheld, no iPads or iPhones or Android?
No.
Currently, okay.
No. Were you talking about filming with?
Or any type of, accompaniment where you could use any type of, like a mini version for a mobile app?
No, well, I mean, you can, touching base on the computer aspect, I mean, you can use a laptop, but it's not recommended. You're going to have more of a PC powering on your engine with your LD wall. So we don't use it. You could use a laptop, but not as much recommended. So yeah.
How do you build an original set for virtual production with Unreal Engine?
Sure. So there's in Unreal Engine, there's this thing called Quixel Bridge, and you use this called Megascans to create these 3D assets in Unreal Engine, which you can get wherever you want essentially from Quixel Bridge. But you're using that, and if you want mountains, like different mountain ridges, different buildings, structures, light poles, different terrains, different clouds, stuff like that. You get all that. You can get all that from a program through Unreal Engine, and basically you're creating it from scratch. So you create it literally from scratch, and yeah. So if a client comes, they're like, "Hey, I want a castle near the woods with a certain sun or like our moon in the backdrop or whatever," you can create that from scratch in Unreal Engine from wherever they want. So yeah. So that's how you create it to what they want or what you want, whatever you're trying to do.
How many preset backgrounds do they have currently?
Sure. Well, okay, so you as a virtual studio, I mean, like we have a library of assets, we call it, of backgrounds that we've made ourselves or gotten. If somebody doesn't like what we have, we can either create from scratch, or there is a marketplace you can get it from where people are making them, different artists are making them, and putting them out there for sale. And they're, you can still use them for filming, for commercial royalty free. You're not gonna, necessarily get in trouble for using it for your project and putting it out there to the public. There's different parameters you can use them for. So yeah, so there's ways to get them, or you get it from someone else making them, a contractor, or make it yourself.
How much time does it take to build sets for virtual production for Unreal Engine?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends what's involved. It really depends on what the client wants. If they want something very, very detailed, like inside of like a castle or something with a lot of detail and like a huge environment, I mean, it can take from a few weeks to over a month. If they want something more basic, like an outdoor environment, like what we see right here in the background, just like mountain ridges and terrain, something a little more basic, that can take a few days up to maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks at most. It really depends on how much detail they want. But the more complex the environment, the longer it's going to take. So yeah, if it's like very detailed and they want like tons of stuff in there and like a big city landscape or something like that, or inside of a castle with tons of detail, it could take up to a month, maybe more, depends.
At the time of this recording, I believe I've been told that Unreal Engine is up to version 5.3. What version did you learn on?
Sure, 5.0. So 5.0 I learned on 5.0, and now it's at 5.3, and it's going to keep going up and up and getting more and more sophisticated and more capabilities with it. But yeah, I learned on 5.0. And the techs I work with as well have different backgrounds. They've all started years back, way before. So they start on like the 4.5, 1, all that stuff. And Unreal Engine's been around for a while now.
So from 5.0 to 5.3, which is what Unreal Engine is currently at, what are some of the changes you've seen?
They keep adding different stuff. Obviously better graphics, obviously. So different assets, different 3D assets in general you can get from Unreal Engine from their marketplace with like the Quixel Bridge that you can create. So different 3D assets, better graphics. It's coming out with just different capabilities, even for like virtual production utilities and things that you can do with it, and not just virtual production, just in the gaming program in general. Like just different things will make it a smoother, easier operating system to use.
How do you get what you create in Unreal Engine onto the LED screen?
Sure. So you have your PC station, what's operating on Unreal Engine, right? And then that's hooked up to your PC is hooked up to your LED wall processor, and then the processor is hooked up to the LED wall. So all those things connected. It's what's on the PC, what's displayed on the PC station is being put on the LED wall. So in connection with that LED wall processor.
What do you think about having your own personal project that you want to build on Unreal Engine in order to help you learn?
No, I think it's great. I think anybody should who's getting into virtual production and LED wall filming. That's huge. Have your own projects that you go out and you build yourself, and you go out and you film yourself in the studio and learn what works and what doesn't, and try out virtual production just one-on-one, from lighting it, foreground practicals, your camera tracking solution, and make that environment that you want, and see also, like, if you're making that environment yourself, if you learn how to do that, how long it took, how long is it going to take you to make certain environments for clients based on what you and your team, how long it's taking them, or you guys based on your own personal projects. So you're shooting like on spec, right? You make your own spec projects. So I think that's very important to do. We've done it. So yeah, 100%.
What's the difference between in-camera VFX and virtual production?
Sure. So they kind of parallel each other. So basically with in-camera VFX, we do both as a studio, but basically with in-camera VFX, you have your foreground practicals, right? You have your foreground practicals, you have your subject or your actor or whatever's in the foreground, a car, if you're doing a car process. And then you have your rear projection, which is your LED wall, and then you have your lighting. So that's technically in-camera VFX. You're shooting everything in picture, in the can, right? So the difference between that and virtual production is a step further. So it's that, all those things I just mentioned, with your gaming software program, Unreal Engine, and your camera tracking solution. That is the difference between the two. And that's what differentiates both of them, is that gaming software program, the camera tracking system with Unreal Engine. So that's virtual production by definition, but a lot of studios now are using both. And it's with your rear projection, the LED walls with the tight pixel pitch, the little light bulbs, and also your high refresh rate. The image looks so stunning that with your foreground practicals, lighting it right, all those things, they parallel each other. The virtual production and camera VFX, but they look so good, even if you're just doing video image plates and you're not using Unreal Engine, you're not using your camera tracking system, that it's still kind of a form of virtual production. It still looks awesome, fantastic, with just using a video image plate without Unreal Engine or a camera tracking system. So technically that's in-camera VFX. But a lot of studios, like I said, including myself, we're doing both, and they do parallel, and that is the main differences. But it looks phenomenal in both of them. So yeah, the in-camera VFX, it still sells really well with the video image plates, and yeah.
Is CGI, green screen, and virtual production the death of cinema?
I don't think it's the death of cinema. I think it's a huge component of the future of cinema. But they both have their pros and cons. I always remember seeing like the old Jurassic Park movie, the first one. It was made in 1993 or 4, whatever it was. They used for a lot of the dinosaurs, I guess, were real animatronic dinosaurs. And now everything's CGI. I liked that better. I preferred, me as a filmmaker, it looked better, I think, and more cool and stuff on screen with the robot animatronic versus now everything's CGI. But I think the CGI, all this stuff, it's here to stay. It's going to be the future. It is the future. So all the stuff we see now is just going to get more and more sophisticated.
So it's just the beginning?
Just the beginning. Just the beginning.
What are some of the problems with virtual production?
So some of the problems, and this is what I advise clients before they come in, is with Unreal Engine, if they're using Unreal Engine as our 3D asset that we're displaying on the wall, that obviously if it's not one of our backgrounds we have in our environment, that it's made well in advance so that we can bring the environment in, we test it out on the wall, make sure there's no glitches, right? If you're changing a lot of backgrounds with different Unreal Engine files, depending on the file size, if it's a big environment, like a big city landscape or whatever, there's more detail, it's going to take longer to load. So we have to load those files days in advance to make sure they upload, there's no glitches, and there's still even times, look, it's a computer gaming software program, it's not perfect. There's been times I've been operating myself, even or one of my techs, and we've tried to like save a certain version of like something we made in it or something we changed in it, and it won't save it properly or something, some small glitch like that. It won't save properly, or like when we did save it, we go back to it and now it's the setting that it was completely different than what we saved it from. It didn't save what we originally made or that we changed it to. It didn't save that setting. So it's not a perfect, flawless program, but there's like little glitches that it's just gonna come up with it. So there's that, loading it. If it's, like I said, the bigger the file size, the longer it is to load and bring it up. So that's solved though. If we have to have the files as a studio, we recommend at least a week in advance that we test it out and all that stuff. So yeah, it's mainly like that, loading it. The glitches on operating it happen time to time. So yeah, those are some of the things I pointed out.
What are some of the glitches that may happen during the actual production?
So yeah, like I've had, again, like kind of touching base with what I mentioned before, I've had a client where we've wanted to change things on the fly, obviously with like saving different things in the engine, with different like things moving and stuff, and it didn't, when we brought it back up, it didn't save it properly. So that is one thing. Depending on your camera tracking solution you're using and the environment, there could be issues, just depending. You're calibrating stuff. There's when you're using technology, there's always something what can go wrong. And then your LED wall, obviously, if cords are unplugged or something happens, obviously panels can go down if somebody happens to unplug a cord or something happens with where it's powered into. So yeah, those are some of the things.
So just like with a regular film screening, let's say you're going to screen your film at a theater, you'd want to test it at least 1 or 2 times.
Right.
With the projectionist.
Right, everything with virtual production, we test. If it's a video image plate, we're gonna put on there. We're also looking at the color. So color and contrast, making sure that it's the proper color and contrast, what's needed, brightness. Looking at that, we QC every quality control every file that comes in, so a video or image plate or Unreal Engine file. So we test a lot of different things when they come in to make sure there's no issues or surprises the day of, especially on Unreal Engine, like loading the file. We ask the client where in the environment they want to be placed or seen, and we go to that part and exactly what they want. So there's no surprises day of. We can do that the day of, but we want to have as much information prior to make sure that it's what they want, and we're not like, somewhere some glitch happens that we don't know about. So we test everything out and quality control it.
What does it cost to work with this technology? Yeah,
so like for us, for instance, we really try to cater to the client, and our main thing for us specifically is wherever their vision is, we try to get that as that's the main goal. Obviously, that's what they're trying to achieve, is this vision, and then we work out budget last. So it can really vary. So basically, if they're using a 2D video or image plate, or versus like Unreal Engine with camera tracking, or they're just using Unreal Engine with no camera tracking, the rates can vary, at least for us. So rates change, they vary depending, it's really client-based and it's tailored towards the clients. But I think also most studios, it really depends. I'm sure some of them operate that same way, that, it depends on what the client really wants, because there's so many different base parameters you can do, or you can go all the way to doing the camera tracking with Unreal Engine to use on the wall. So, and then you have the LED wall itself as equipment that you got to run. So, and then preferably a technician what knows LED walls to troubleshoot. So troubleshooting the wall, if something goes down, the computer, the processor. So all those things are factored into a budget. And yeah, I would say, I can't speak for every studio out there, but the bigger the LED wall, the bigger the LED volume, that's what we call it, the more overhead that they have, and the more they're gonna charge the clients. So we're a boutique studio. We try to cater to independent clients and everyone and anyone.
Is this technology affordable for independent filmmakers?
Absolutely. That was my main vision as a business owner coming in and opening the studio, is to make this an affordable thing, an asset for independent filmmakers who don't have tons and tons and tons and thousands of dollars to go spend at a virtual studio with these big volumes. We're a boutique studio. We cater towards independent artists, independent producers, ad agencies, branded companies, whoever, filmmakers. So it's becoming more affordable and more people are learning more about it. But that was my vision starting a studio, to appeal to the independent artists, independent companies. We don't have these huge budgets, but yeah, I think as time goes on, there'll be more and more boutique studios will pop up and it'll become more affordable as time goes on. But it's becoming more affordable, but not as much. There's a few boutique studios out there where you can go to as an independent artist and get what you want for a good price.
Would you recommend it only for feature independent filmmakers? Or short filmmaking viable as well? It's just for the cost, would that warrant doing a short?
Yes, absolutely. So, a short film feature, it doesn't really matter on the content, just the length of days of filming. It's just what they're requiring or what they want will change the budget. And I think that's for most studios, virtual studios, especially for us. But yeah, definitely.
How long before we see YouTubers and other content creators use this in their own bedrooms, really?
Well, you never know. Never say never. Rear projection's been around for a long time, since the 1930s when it first came out, with Fox Studios were using it for feature films, and they had a rear projection screen. So you never know in the future with YouTubers and people coming in, how they can, as the screens have, LED walls get more inexpensive, that's, who knows who can get their hands on them in the future. It's more accessible to everybody in virtual production with them and all that.
What kind of jobs are there in virtual production?
Yeah, so, well, of course you have your Unreal Engine technical operator who's operating Unreal Engine on the PC on your computer. That's one job. Somebody who's responsible on a team of operating your camera tracking system. That's a job. A virtual production technician who knows all the technical aspects in filming and virtual production, such as your blocking with your camera placement to your LED wall with your actor, your subject placement to the camera and the LED wall, and all these different technical elements I mentioned before, with like the horizontal banding, flickering, and how to get your camera in sync with the LED wall processor, and then using Genlock, which pairs all your equipment up on the set to help out with all that. So that's a job. So the virtual production technician that's the term. So that's a job. And then you have, I would call, even now it's becoming, directing in virtual production, well, it's its own job in itself. It's different. Directing in virtual production is different than filming on location or anywhere else, because of the blocking and the camera placement with your actor, the lighting. There's so many different things in directing the actors on the set that you and your DP have to be aware of and know about. So even directing, I would say, a cinematographer who's familiar with virtual production filming, that can be it's a niche. So the directing the niche, the cinematographer in itself is a niche like job for virtual production. And I mentioned the camera tracking operator, someone who knows how to do that. Depending on what system they're using, there's different camera tracking solutions. The Unreal Engine operator, and then also a LED wall technician who knows how to troubleshoot LED walls. So that's another one. And then also, forgot to mention, a person who's how to operate the actual LED wall processor. So yeah, so there's definitely a lot of jobs in virtual production, and those are some of them.
What are the jobs that you're offering here at this studio?
So the jobs I'm offering here are all the ones I mentioned, but we're looking for Unreal Engine game designers. That's another one I didn't mention. That's Unreal Engine, people who can design Unreal Engine game environments, 3D assets, gaffers, grips, cinematographers, virtual production technicians who can come in and, either they have experience in it or they don't. We can teach them all these different technical elements, filming and virtual production, and how they can be a technician in virtual production and take that as a job skill even to wherever in the future. But those are some jobs we're offering here.
In the realm of Unreal Engine, how popular do you think special effects artists will become?
Well, using Unreal Engine in general, people who know how to operate that system and develop game environments, 3D assets in it, it's going to become more popular. So as more of these studios develop, virtual studios, those jobs are going to be more in demand. So, I mean, it's technically, virtual production is part of the VFX community. So more jobs are going to pop up, and that's one of them is being a operator and a game designer, and Unreal Engine is one of the big ones. So with virtual production, everything's shot, especially LED wall filming and picture. So it saves you from doing all that post-production work. So as far as like a VFX artist in post-production, I mean, we need them obviously. So those jobs are always in demand, but virtual production, really a big benefit is saving people with LED wall, that everyone's filming everything in picture. So they don't have to do all this post-production work with changing things and VFX work as much.
What do you think will become the most in-demand job in virtual production in the near future?
I think that the most in-demand job in the future will be a virtual production supervisor and or technician, especially a virtual production supervisor who is an expert at everything overall in virtual production. Because as it gets bigger and bigger, somebody who can go on a virtual set and knows every element, from the camera tracking system to all the technical aspects with blocking, placement with actors, cameras, understanding Unreal Engine, understanding Genlock with synchronizing everything. That's going to be a high demand job. The technician, so it'll be a high demand job. I think those two mainly. And then also somebody who knows how to operate a camera tracking system, depending on which one it is. But someone who's familiar with all the different camera tracking systems out there for virtual production, that is a job that will be highly desirable, I think, in the future, and it is now. I had trouble finding people myself, even for my studio. I had to learn a lot of it myself with my team. But if they know how to learn, or they know how to do that, that's going to be huge. So those jobs, what I mentioned, are going to be big.
Do you believe that virtual production is here to stay?
I do. I do think it's here to stay because all the benefits that it has. There's so many benefits that can save people and cutting down on production costs that I think it's here to stay. It's going to get more advanced as time goes on, and there'll always be on location filming and filming outside of a virtual studio, but it's definitely here to stay. It's going to get more popular as time goes on, as it gets more accessible to people.
What do you feel is the future of virtual production?
Good question. Well, it's I can imagine with the LED walls. The one thing I'm seeing now is what we call the pixel pitch, the little light bulbs on the wall. They're getting smaller, smaller, smaller. So the picture's looking, well, two things about it. That with the refresh rate, the picture's looking better and better on the walls. And with that tighter pixel pitch on the wall, the little millimeter light bulbs, you can get closer to the wall with the camera. So there's different, it has different parameters where that's going to get more advanced. They're getting smaller pixel pitches on the walls already. The refresh rates are better. Everything's just looking better on there. Unreal Engine is going to get better as things come out with that, with different assets, 3D assets they have. It's going to look better and better overall. And then the camera tracking systems are going to get way better, get way more easier to use. Because right now there's you got to do a lot of calibration and things with it. But in the future, and I'm seeing it now too, that they're going to be smaller, easier to use, that most people can figure out, and just better overall. That's going to facilitate virtual production and becoming just way better as it's what it is now.
What do you think about the future of AI and virtual production intermixing?
So AI, it's already, I've seen AI is being used to make even short films by itself as it is. But with AI in the future, and maybe it's going on now, I'm not as much aware, but I'm sure Unreal Engine environments can be made by AI. So that's an environment you can just get made by AI, for instance. And that can really help facilitate what you're trying to do. So it could save you time, it could save you budget potentially. I don't know what the tech artists you have on the team. But yeah, there's more things coming out with AI, what's going to help out with a lot of things with businesses, virtual production, and yeah.
We interviewed you in 2017, I believe, Keith. What's been your biggest eye-opener and what you've learned? Maybe it's been something more about yourself or about the business? that was sort of a real shock to you? Could be positive or negative.
Yeah, when we first met, and I still do have a production company. Now I have this virtual studio. So I never operated like a physical storefront business until now. So there's a lot of things I learned just about business in general, not just about the film business, about business that just blew my mind. Opening my own storefront is the best thing I've ever done in my entire life, actually, and what it's taught me. About people, about life, how money works. That's one of the biggest things that could really benefit people, how money works, opening your own storefronts. And just, it's changed, the business has changed a lot in film since then. Now, yeah, we have virtual studios. There's a lot of different things that's always changing. There's AI would come out and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely taught me a lot with what I'm doing with this. And that's, I've learned a lot since then.
Did it test your resolve? Did you think you either A, wouldn't be able to do something, or B, thought maybe you'd be Teflon and it wouldn't affect you, and you learned what you were made of, good or bad?
Right. Well, no, it taught me, look, if you have a goal in mind and you want to accomplish something, if you put in the work, you can accomplish it. That's really what I've learned. I was never into technical stuff before I got into opening a virtual studio. I knew how to operate basic cameras, but I didn't know about Unreal Engine, virtual production, how to operate camera tracking systems, Genlock, the sync generators we use for Genlock, and all these different technical things. I never really considered myself like a tech guy, but I put in the work, put in the time, put in the effort, and I had a goal in mind. And it taught me that if you have that in mind, you can accomplish pretty much anything you want. You just have to put in the work. So, and going out and, hustling and, just building your business. And in life, one thing also I've learned just in business in general is no job is guaranteed. You have to earn your job. You have to earn your money as an entrepreneur. Nothing's guaranteed, no job.